Hi, I'm Darlene Carman.
And I'm Doug Carman.
Welcome to the show. Sandi Selvie is a comedian, keynote speaker, author, and the second person in California to receive a stem cell transplant for MS. Her book, Won't Do Stand Up in a Wheelchair, is an intense account of her struggle to regain her health and pursue her dream. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Nice to have you back.
Nice to see you.
And
yes.
When you were here, you also had Beth Schumann from
yes.
Rooster T. Feathers Comedy Club in San Jose.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sunnyvale. And I'm in San Jose. And so you're going to do a little bit of comedy for us, but first let's talk about your book.
Okay.
In your book, you mentioned that the doctors do not know what causes MS. Well, that was a while ago. So now, has there been any new developments? Do they know if it was like from a virus or a bacterium?
No, it's still, I mean, there's theories on both, but nobody really knows the truth. I mean, I'm convinced it's environmental. I mean, that's what I think. And I think it starts as either a bacterium or a virus, and it progresses as you get older.
And it has something to do with the immune system and stress.
Yes.
But a lot of other illnesses have that same company, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, stress is not my friend.
Well, I know, you know, from your own interest that you did some research, and you found that 13 people out of less than 700 from your high school had come down with MS.
Yes.
That sounds like it's way below, way above than what would the national average would be.
The national average in the United States is there's accounting, I mean, according to the MS Society, and there's several people who have said it's about 11 people out of every 10,000 have MS. And in my little community, I lived in Ben Lomond, and we lived up in the San Lorenzo Valley, and there's a group of little like towns, Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek, Felton. And in that area, when I was in high school, there was probably, I mean, there's 15,000 people living up there now. And I mean, according to the Census Bureau or whatever, so there's 15,000, you know, 10 years ago there were 7,000. In 1978, I would say there was maybe 4,000 people living in the valley. 700 of them were in high school. And out of those 700 people, there was 13 that we found that have MS. And so, yeah, I called the National Disease Control, and I said, I think we have a cluster. And they came out and found out that they had been doing mining, and they have, you know, they're trying to figure out, you know, they said that they find it is a cluster. So
that would lead some credence to environmental.
Yeah.
Is there anything more that you're going to do with this? Can you go anywhere with this information?
I have no idea what to do with it now. I've left it in their hands. So. Yeah, I've told everybody in my high school. So. And
you contacted these people personally? Did they have any feelings about it too?
They sent me back some reports that they had done and showing what the mining that had been done during that time. So yeah, they thought that might have had something to do with it.
That's amazing. Mining of, do you know what? Mining what?
I'm not familiar.
Bunch of chemicals.
It's
not good.
Heavy metals.
Yeah, it can't be good.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when people think of transplants, they think of receiving a new organ transplant.
Right.
And stem cell transplant is a little bit different.
Totally different,
so
yes.
Explain the process. What went on?
Well, basically what they did was I went through a process to figure out whether or not I even qualified. And then once I did, they had to, they used my stem cells. So most people, when they hear about stem cell transplants, they associate with fetal stem cells, and they don't understand that there are different types of stem cell transplants to be done. And mine was, it's called an autologous stem cell transplant. I used my own stem cells. And they started out by giving me medication to produce stem cells, and it kicks it into your blood. And then they put me up to it's called an apheresis machine. And the apheresis machine basically is hooked up to two tubes that they had implanted into the clavicle in my neck. And they are underneath the clavicle, and they put it up here, and basically two tubes. One was for funneling blood out, the other was for funneling blood in. Oh. So it went through this machine and spun at a huge high rate, which the stem cells lifted, and they were spun off to and they cleaned them, froze them, irradiated them, and put them away. And they basically went back and then gave them to me. And so what they do is everybody goes, well, what do they do? And I said, well, it's like if you have an IV bag, it's basically an IV bag with my stem cells. And
so it didn't hurt. It's
no. No, it just came right into a tube. No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, having your own stem cells, I guess, lessens the chance for rejection. Is that why?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did this process take?
It was over a 2-month period that it took. I went through chemotherapy and radiation, because basically what they want to do is kill your immune system and then build you a new immune system. Because MS, like you were saying, is your immune system killing you. And so they figured if they kill your immune system and build a new one, then you'll be MS free. And so theoretically it made sense, and I was the second one to say, okay, do it, just to see if we could do it.
Yeah.
And that, and it showed to me, because I used to walk with a cane. I had no bladder control. I had tremors so bad that I couldn't hold a cup in my hand. I couldn't paint. I had a painting business. I had to give it up. And my life had changed, and I wanted the madness to stop. And my doctors told me at one point, you'll be in a wheelchair within 5 years. And I was like,
no.
Yeah, 2 things I don't look good in. One's green and the other one's wheelchairs.
Now the chemo, how many treatments did you have?
I had full body radiation, and chemo is basically another thing that nobody understands. Is it's a bag, and it comes like an IV bag. And
not a good bag.
No. And I knew I was in trouble, because when the gals came in to deliver the chemo bag, they were all in masks and hazmat gear, and they come walking in, they're like, hey, with tongs, they're not even touching this stuff. And I'm like going, okay, you're gonna put that in me? And they're going, it's gonna kill you, basically. Yeah, we're giving it to you. So, yeah, it was quite interesting.
Now, when you had this done, it was extremely costly for your family, because the insurance didn't cover it.
No.
Now, that was around 12 years ago.
Yes.
Has that kind of changed as our insurance companies starting to cover some of these
Yeah, I think the
procedures?
insurance companies are starting to figure it out, because they see that the cost of medications. When my cost of medication for me, back in 1995, when I was on Avonex, and my yearly bill was like $10,000, and then it got up to about $12,000, then it got up to about $18,000, and then I heard it was up to $20,000, and now it's like $40,000 for a year for this medication.
Wow.
My stem cell transplant cost me $100,000, so you figure it's 2 years worth of, a little over 2 years worth of medication, and on some of them, it's 3 years worth of medication. So the insurance company is realizing, in the long run, it saves them, although some insurance companies are thinking maybe these people aren't going to hang around for that long. So, I don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, it is. I do hear that in Northwestern University there are people that are having their insurance company is paying for most of it. So yeah, it's nice to hear.
Yeah. Also, you had a lot of complications, and
just a couple,
and post surgery.
Yeah.
Because of everything you went through.
Yes.
Was there any, I understand that your thyroid kind of went haywire.
Yes, it did.
And that was that a procedural error, or
it was
something?
When they were doing the radiation, they put me in they made a suit for you to wear so that it covers the parts that they don't want radiated, which the thyroid was part of it, but obviously something went wrong.
And
because
the thyroid is somewhere here.
It's right in here.
Right here.
You'll see. There's where they took it out.
So they didn't give you
eventually.
They didn't get you covered properly, which exposed
they
thyroid.
they had me covered properly. It's something, I don't know what went wrong. I'm not going to blame anybody for it, because it was just, I just say it's a side effect, and I figured that it worked so well, I'm not going to complain.
But your thyroid was like.
Oh, my thyroid was, I was on a 4-year roller coaster ride with my thyroid, because basically what they did was it radiated the thyroid, which made it stop working. And so I started gaining, because I had lost so much weight during the stem cell transplant. I was down to 98 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, which was really low for me. And I got up to 160 pounds, and they were like, and that I had never been over 140 even when I was pregnant.
And you're about 5'6"?
5'7", yeah. So when I all of a sudden, here's all this weight on me, and they said, well, what's wrong with you? And they realized my thyroid wasn't working. So they put me on medication, and the medication they put me on, my thyroid, I mean, it was like I lost the weight so fast. And it basically what happened was they realized was that the medication actually kicked the thyroid into working. So not only was I on the medication, I was also, my thyroid was working, so it was working double time, which causes what they call Graves' disease. And I had thyroid, so that's what happened was is that it started, my eyes started bulging out of my head, like
well,
Marty Feldman.
Your eyes, now that was a result because of the thyroid problem.
Yes, it was.
And then you had 3 surgeries.
Yes, 3
and
surgeries.
And it didn't exactly work, so
no.
Go ahead, take that. Tell us what's...
because the thyroid started working and the medication was working, and I had Graves' disease, which causes, what happens is that the material behind your eyes mimics the material in a thyroid, so your antibodies are attacking it, and it starts to swell. So, and they can't get the swelling down; they have to remove it.
Remove
the material.
The material.
So
I read the book.
Yes. So what they did was, in order to get to the material, and I'll take the patch off, which will freak some people out, but basically they cut here and here, and they broke these bones. They took my eyes out. They took the material out from behind my eyes, but when they did, they realized there was a huge infection in this side. So when they put them back, this eye went in perfectly fine. This eye, there was so much room that there was no it didn't position correctly, so it was aimed this way. So after the first surgery, this eye was aimed at my nose. This eye was aimed straight. So I had double vision that was so bad I couldn't open my eyes. I would throw up every time I opened my eyes. So I just had to keep one eye covered until they did the second surgery. And then the second surgery, what they did is they basically went in and cut all the muscles and repositioned the eyeball so that it was even, except for that I have MS.
Yeah.
And because of all that, the muscles didn't quite take the way they should have.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, when you have surgeries like this, scar tissue.
Yeah.
And then they're cutting the muscle, and they kind of cut one a little bit too short.
Well, what happens is once you cut it, and then you fix it, it's already a little bit short. But then the second time that they did it, so with the third surgery, was because it froze. And what happened was the muscles had completely attached all the way around the eyeball, so it wouldn't even move. So this eye sat perfectly straight, and this eye was going like, and I was like, okay, you know. So they did the same thing. They removed the muscles, they moved the eyeball, and they replaced it. And by that time, the muscles on this side are this short, and the muscles over here are this long. And so this eye's moving free, and this eye's just going like squeak, squeak, squeak. So
you got a lot of help going through like some sort of physical therapy for eyes?
I went through physical therapy for my eyes, yeah.
How long did that go on?
3 years.
And that really helped you, though?
It helped me get my vision from 2 feet to 18 feet. So I can actually take the patch off and focus. I can focus up to 18 feet. So, and I can focus, I can make you one, but then I always look like I'm really angry.
So this was like exercises, kind of? Like, you know, look over here, look over there?
It was basically training up, down, side, side, and working them together. So they would take 2 dots, and I would have to physically work my eyeballs together because they weren't working together.
I bet that hurt.
Oh, I still get headaches thinking about it. Still, even when I do the movement, it makes me a headache.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
No fun.
Yes. Well, you know, I'm going to make sure I don't get this wrong.
Okay.
So, a quote from your book: "Comedy and tragedy walk the same line."
Yes.
Direct quote from the book.
Yes.
Explain that.
I think that without tragedy, you can't have comedy, because if you don't have the thing that upsets you, you don't know what's going to make you happy. And I think that you're walking down this thin line anyways, because if you look at every major funny comedian, if you do a joke and people laugh, but if you do a joke and you fall down, people laugh way harder. So I think it has something to do with that. You know, it's just people I think it's their way to laugh, or the way to deal with things is to laugh at tragedy. And I think that it's like,
that
for me.
Tragedy can bring on anxiety, and I think comedy comes out of anxiety.
It does.
So you started your comedy career a year after your transplant, is that correct?
Yes.
And we have a little time. Tell us, you went to college. Go into that a little bit, how you developed your comedy.
Well, the whole reason I went into comedy was because when I was going through my stem cell transplant, like when I told you, they were putting a port into my chest, and they went under the clavicle, and they ended up puncturing my lung.
Yeah.
And nobody knew. And they thought that when I went in and I said, I can't breathe, and the doctor said, well, you're nervous. And I said, no, I just can't breathe. And they said, well, we'll give you some Ativan, honey, you'll be fine. Well, Ativan, I don't know if you know, it's a great drug. Yeah. And so after a few more minutes, they said, how are you feeling? I said, I still can't breathe. And she says,
but couldn't breathe.
Here's some more Ativan. And I said, okay. And so she came back a few minutes later, and how are you doing? And I said, I'm doing fine. So I couldn't breathe, but I told her I was doing fine, so they sent me home. And I went home, and as soon as I started to lay down, I said, I can't breathe. And my husband says, well, what are you going to do? And I propped all the pillows up, and I sat up, and my kids had given me a video game to play, just to have fun with while I was, because they thought I'd be bored.
Yeah.
And so I was playing the video game, and I threw that down, and I had bought a box of videotapes at Costco. It was a $10.99 box. I was with my friend Shelley. And we bought this box of tapes at Costco, and it was all the 10 different comedians. And so I sat that night and I started listening. The first one I listened to was Brian Regan. And I started listening and I started laughing. And I realized that when I laughed, I took a breath.
Oh.
And so because when I was laughing, it was involuntary. I wasn't doing it on purpose. And I could tell that I was catching a breath. And so I sat there and I thought, okay, if I live through this night, I'm going to do comedy because I want to make people laugh to make them feel good. So when my husband came in the next morning and took one look at me, he said, are you okay? And I said, yeah. And he says, I'll be right back. I'm going to go he goes, just get your stuff ready. We're going to the hospital. And I go, why? And he goes, your lips are blue.
Oh.
I said, oh. And I looked down and my fingers were blue. And I went, I think we better hurry. And so on the way, he said, he's looking at me and he goes, I can't believe you're so calm. And I said, no, I figured out where I'm going. I'm going to be a comedian when I grow up. And he says, you're 40 years old. I said, I'm going to do it. I swear I'm going to make people laugh.
And you do.
I try. I love it. I think it's fun.
You've been doing comedy for quite a while now. And
I have.
You've had coaches. I mean, this is serious.
Yeah.
It might be funny, but it's serious for you.
I love it because I want to eventually, go into where I could do a one-woman show.
Would you do something for us now?
I would absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Well, hello. How is everybody today? See, we have an audience. Yeah, okay, so my name is Sandi Selvie, and I wrote this book. It's called Won't You Stand Up in a Wheelchair. I wrote it because I had a stem cell transplant, and because I have MS. Yeah, I had that same look on my face when I was first diagnosed. I had no idea what it was. So I went home and Googled it, typed in MS. Actually, I typed in S&M because I'm dyslexic, and I thought, oh, what a great disease. This is going to be fun. Yeah, so I bought me some new accoutrements for my disease, yeah. Showed up in my newly diagnosed support group meeting in just my thigh highs with a whip. And they kept looking at me like I was the freak. I mean, these people were in wheelchairs. So I was like, no. Yeah, then I found out MS, S&M, not the same thing. No, MS happens to be the stuff that Annette Funicello has. You know who she is, right? Yeah, she's one from the Mickey Mouse Club. She also was from the Beach Blanket Bingo movies, did that dance, Turns out that wasn't a dance. Yeah, MS sucks. I didn't, and I just didn't like it because I mean, my MS had gotten so bad. I was walking with a cane. I had no bladder control. It was horrible. And I didn't know what to do. So I volunteered. I went down to San Diego. I volunteered for a stem cell transplant, which rebooted my entire immune system. And all of a sudden, my body started rejecting all foreign objects. First it was my husband. Selvie, he's Italian, he's foreign, hello. Yeah, and then I had a pencil lead in my arm, pencil lead, right here. 5th grade Mike Smith, Yeah, I remember it. And, you know, I had pencil lit in my arm. Came out, popped out. I went in, oh my God, what's this? You know, the doctor was like, oh my God, it's pencil lit. I went, oh, that's right. Yeah, then I had a rock in my knee. One rock. Yeah, I was shocked too. I thought there would have been a lot more with the amount of time I spent on my knees in high school. Yeah. Oh, get your mind out of the gutter, Doug. I was praying, people. Praying my dad wouldn't find out about all those guys. Yeah. But then this is the worst part. I had breast implants. I hate to admit it, and I know you're going, why? You know, I had breast implants when I was young because I was so sick and tired of looking men in the eye when we talked. So I got them, and it worked. It was awesome. Yeah. But yeah, it was really cool, but they fell out. My husband was so depressed. He was looking at me, and he just goes, oh my God, they just don't feel the same anymore. And I'm like, honey, that's the maid. I'm over here. He was so depressed. And I love my husband because, you know, he's been by my side through my 2 back surgeries, my elbow surgery, my shoulder surgery. I mean, he's been right by my side through my gallbladder surgery, my MS, my stem cell transplant. And I'm thinking now, wow, he's bad luck. And I used to think this man, he took my breath away. Now I'm realizing he's really sucking the life out of me. So yeah, I have 2 sons. I love my son. My youngest, I love him to death, death being the operative here, because the kid lies to me. And now I know he's lying to me, and he knows I know he's lying to me, yet he continues lying. Oh, crap, I'm raising a Republican. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for laughing. All right.
Yeah. You know, you had like, what is it, 26?
26, yes.
In the book?
Yeah.
Well, now some of them, it's not all because of the transplant, of course.
No,
you know.
no, it started out, but a lot of them started from before I didn't even realize I had MS, and I had one of my first surgeries. They took my appendix out, thinking that I had something different. They didn't know what it was, and they went in and they went, oh well, not your appendix, but we're going to take it out anyways because you have this huge scar, and they're going to always assume you had it out. And I'm like, what?
Good,
Yeah.
Well,
I
parts
also
is
have a
parts,
little
yeah.
tiny bit of rock in my knee from when I fell on a bicycle and I didn't clean it properly. And I
Right.
know it's there, but I hope it never, you know,
Yeah.
comes out. Now, when you were here before,
Yes.
Afterward, weeks afterwards, this article was in the paper, and I thought, timing.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's pretty good timing actually now. And did you know that Stanford University of Medicine has the biggest stem cell facility here in the nation?
I knew that they had a large one. I didn't know it was the biggest, but I did know.
Amazing.
I knew. Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, this article is October 2010. I
Right.
saved it all this time
Yeah.
for you, but they're doing some amazing things.
Yeah.
And do you know of anything else going on with research?
I do, and I know that Northwestern University is doing stem cell transplants now for people with MS. And it's been interesting because I just, you know, I keep hearing, and I started a group called Stem Cell Warriors. It's a page on Facebook.
Oh.
And it's basically everybody who has had a stem cell transplant or is thinking about having one. And we have, I think, 75 or 85 people in the group.
Wow.
And most of them have had stem cell transplants. And it's interesting because you get to read about all these people that are doing it right now. And it's kind of fun because they send messages specifically. Okay, when it started, did this happen? You know, so it's kind of fun to be able to tell somebody because there was nobody for me because I know.
You're the senior member.
Well,
then,
I was the second one in California, and then the gal that talked me into doing it, the one that her name was Deb Gaffner. She was the one who talked me into doing it. She passed away 6 months after I had mine done.
Yes.
From a complication, due to her stem cell transplant, which made me panic and paranoid, and I stayed in my bed for how long? 6 months. Yeah.
But they're actually doing stem cell transplants for other things.
Yes, they are.
And that's what
Yeah.
it was mentioning here. They're growing all kinds of separate, and they mentioned like some of them are heart cells and they're beating in unison,
So they
and
can
they're trying to use it for cancer. I don't know how successful, or do you know?
I know that they do. I know that they have done many stem cell transplants for cancer because I know that the oncology department is right next to the endocrinology department in San Diego. And that is how they figured it out, because all these people who had cancer, who also had MS, were going in to have their cancer dealt with doing a stem cell transplant or a bone marrow transplant, and coming out with their MS going away. And so they basically, that was when they came to me and said, we need people who just have MS that don't have cancer. So that was one of the first things I had to be tested for.
I would think that they should do more for cancer. Cancer is so prevalent, and
it is, yeah.
Instead of just the chemo and radiation and whatever else they do, I would think that they would do more.
Yeah.
Do you know if why they're not doing more?
Funding. There's no money out right now. I mean the economy's just in the
Well,
the
embryonic stem cells is what's caused all the problems. Now, you had your own, so
Right.
that's
Yeah.
a little different, but
yeah, but the embryo, I don't understand that whole fight to begin with, because I figured, you know, it's just they don't understand. I think it's a religious, and it's a stupid issue that shouldn't be an issue. It should
Well,
be,
Stanford brought that up in the article too, and you know, they were able to get the funds within Stanford, a lot of it. There was another fund that they were able to get through California, but yes, they used a lot of from the alumni and other sources, because it's just, you know, it's gotta happen. It's gotta move forward, you know. And I agree with you. Religion and politics and all that doesn't really
mix. They don't mix. The Middle East proves that. I'm sorry.
saving lives is the biggest priority over anything.
I would think
Absolutely.
so.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this has been so much fun
thank you.
that I
Thank
would
you.
like to invite you to come back next week.
I would
And
love it.
Could you bring some friends?
I would love that. Yeah.
We need more comedy. I just, you know, we hit on some serious subjects like tonight.
Yes.
But yet we can have fun.
Yes.
And do. Yes. So thank you for watching out there, and tune in next week, and we're going to have lots more comedy for you. Thanks for watching the show. Watch again.